Hi there, before I get started, we issued some tokens to you over the Christmas period. Those will be running out in the next 24 hours. So if you haven't spent them yet, well worth going onto the site. And I don't know if you've seen, we've got this new Gizmo bundle here. I'm so incredibly excited to share something that I've basically been trying to do for at least 10 years now. I'm a blagger, which basically means I'm self-taught. And much of the time, for us self-taught people, there are big holes in our knowledge. And the way in which we work our way around and through those holes is to blag. And I've been designing a series of things called blag sheets, which are emergency cards which you can refer to get you out of little pickles. They're free to download onto your phone and they're designed to fit perfectly on your phone, and they take advantage of the brilliant technology that is the humble PDF and its ability for you to be able to zoom right in on the details. So if you go to blag sheets here, you'll see that we've gone from 2 to 4. You can view them directly here, or indeed you can download them again for free directly to your phone, stick them in your documents or your photos wherever you need them, and have them there as an emergency. We also have posters, and they're very attractive A1 posters. They come on a really beautiful card with a slight sheen to them and make a great addition to a studio. If you go to our merch store, go to wall art, we've got all 4 designs there, both in our neon green and also with the assistance of a model there showing us their size. We have them black on white, which is particularly helpful for people who maybe struggle with their eyesight a little bit. But let's go back to the online PDFs, which are designed for accessibility to all for free. The microphones, this was actually a request of one of our users. I had so much fun writing and designing this because I know a bit about microphones from a collector's point of view, but little about how they actually worked, and have swatted up hugely to get a definitive blagger's guide to how they work and why we use different mics in different scenarios. And whilst I was there, found some really interesting bits of trivia, like this design here, which we've seen in countless films, wasn't actually introduced until 1971, that AKG and Neumann are arch enemies, and the C12 was built as a competitor for the U-47, and that the SM in SM57 stands for studio microphone. So that's microphones. But the thing I'm really excited to show you today is the instruments one. The Crow Hill project, what I was doing with Spitfire and what I'm doing on this channel, is about tearing down the mystery and snobbery about working with live musicians. And so often where we really come up against embarrassment is working with live musicians, live instruments that we know little about. And there's so often tells for musicians that you may not quite have their back. There are so often things that will take their confidence away from you as a composer, and that is usually writing notes that they cannot play or writing them in a way that they cannot understand. So if we go through to instruments here, we've got a guide to use here, but basically it's been designed as a means of consolidating lots of information that you can get on the biggest but worst database on the planet, aka the internet, into a definitive sheet where everything is displayed in a uniform and understood manner. It was quite interesting with the microphone blag sheet. I wanted to get all of the dimensions and weights of each microphone. So I actually went on to ChatGPT. So listen, make me a list of dimensions and weights of all of these microphones. And I wouldn't have noticed the results returned were so inaccurate had it not been for it reporting that the RE20, this thing, is only 4 inches long. If that's 4 inches, there's cause for concern. And on cross-checking the stuff that ChatGPT, and then I used the Google AI stuff, I saw that basically 30% of the data supplied back to me was totally wrong. And I think this is where there's call for something like a blag sheet, because we need to be able to trust our sources so that our musicians can trust we know what we're doing, albeit from a self-taught source. The other thing that I think is useful about these things is how often do you write for a contrabassoon or a cor anglais or a cimbasso? Maybe once every 2-3 years. And it's great to be able to just swat up quickly on whether it transposes, what clef to write it in, etc., etc. What we have is our range, again, something that causes so many problems. When they created MIDI, the technology behind Yamaha meant that they couldn't have a 0, hence they needed C4 to be C3 so that they didn't have an A0, it was an A1. We're working on the presumption that middle C is understood at C4, so you have the clef that the instrument usually plays in, you have its abbreviation that will be recognised on a score or a part for the instrument, so you're not writing the whole thing out. We look at whether it transposes, the violin doesn't, and therefore is just in C. If we were to have, say, for example, a trumpet, that's a transpositional instrument that transposes into B flat. There you go there, or the French horn is in F. And then this is very much specific to your DAW, which I'll come back to shortly. The range is G3, so there, to A7, which is, I think, there. Professional ranges, but not the kind of ranges where if you called ahead, they may be able to go beyond. Trumpets are a very good example of what's their recommended range versus what some players can play, can vary hugely. We've got some repertoire. Now, this has been prepared by my friend Alan Glenn, had a look across orchestras all around the world and looked at common repertoire pieces that are requested of players when they're auditioning. They have a degree of virtuosity required, but are certainly very idiomatic of the instrument. I'm hoping that there's lots of adventures to be had in the repertoire aspect. There'll be some notes that will give any particular kind of red flags to do's and don'ts. And then we have the written and sounds range. You'll see, for example, this is a little octave up bit here. So that is the actual written range. The reason we've done that is we'd suggest maybe above this point, not going into too many ledger lines even further, even though professional violinists will be able to read up there. So there's lots of little pointers. How would I use it? Now, arranging that for 5 sections, so 2 violins, viola, cello, bass, what I would do is simply duplicate that another 4 times. So this is our firsts, seconds, violas. Again, is the abbreviation that you'll see on the blag sheet. Is that right? VLC? Yep, VLC. Violoncello, and then CB. Contra bass. Always very simple to voice stuff. Where strings are concerned, it's just the guys at the top take the top notes, and then you just work your way through like you would a cutlery set at a banquet. And finally, the very bottom notes. Should sound the same. And then all we need to do, get rid of those bloody pesky pedals, and you'll see that this is actually in the piano clef, which is incorrect. So what we need to do is change that to the treble clef, as suggested here. It doesn't transpose, so we don't need to do anything else. Same thing for this, which is correctly in the treble clef. Then we've got the middle line, which is just legato those, which is the viola, which we need to put into the viola clef, which is the tenor clef there. And then we've got the cello, which is in the bass clef, which is correct. Legato-fy that. And then we've got the bass. Now, when we go down to the bass, we will see that it is a transposing instrument. It remains in C, but basically everything it reads is an octave above how it plays or sounds. So you'll see here it is written like this, but it actually sounds like that. So what we need to do here is transpose it by 12. And then what you'll see is whilst I played the basses and the cellos in octaves, what they're reading is exactly the same notes. The bass player simply knows that these notes are an octave lower. Now, say if I wanted the French horn to play the cello part. French horn looks like this thing, very noble sounding instrument, or double the cello. What I do is I would transpose that up 7 semitones. Check that. It's in the bass clef, which is the clef that it uses there, and that's ready to go. Now, this is going to sound a bit funky. Which is why when I prepare templates, I will have separate channels for the notation work that I need to do that I'll dump the MIDI into, and they won't have a MIDI output, so that I can transpose away without it ruining the sonics of the sequence that I've worked hard to make sound realistic, that kind of stuff. But that is the blag sheet. And let us know what you think. It's been created and researched by Alan Glenn and myself, but also contributions, proofreaders, suggestions from the amazing Crow Hill network. If you want to be part of the conversation, check out the link down below. Some really fantastic contributions who have been credited here. Many thanks to you. And there's many more of these blag sheets to come. I want to look at notation. I've been working on a blag sheet of venues, loving the way that hopefully these will be a crow bar that jimmy the door open for stuff that has been off-putting for people to use. And this nervousness that we have this day on not really having definitive information, authoritative information available to us. Whilst this may be information light, one sheet, everything has been checked and double-checked, but I'm sure there might even still be some mistakes in there, so we'd appreciate any comments either down below or indeed on our network forum should you want to join us there. Everything I've talked about today is linked in the video description down below, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on blag sheets and how you'd like us to take this project on. It's providing me with a huge amount of joy to realise something that I've been wanting to do for well over a decade now. See you next time.